everyone knows that this is elephant in the room, but everyone was shying away from calling this elephant an elephant. And it was PBS who almost 3 months back, when we detected the over listing in several parts of Pakistan, which were hard to believe. They were not making sense. We recorded them. We brought to Census Monitoring Committee, which is headed by Minister Planning, and we asked the province to look into this and correct this. And then we also started this discussion that unless the linkage from resources and representation are taken away, unless it is delinked, Pakistan, I mean, either one way is to use your education system or communication to desensitize the whole nation, which comprises of people, political stakeholders, and all institutions. That's very hard way. So it's choice of people, choice of government, that how they want to proceed. But the truth is that till the linkages are present, it's really hard to stop this zero-sum game. So that's from my side, and it should go to PBS credit, which started this conversation more than 2 months back. And good thing is now that legislators are talking about this, NGOs are talking about this, academicians are talking about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Now I would like to bring in Dr. Zeba Sattar to share her thoughts on this, the first digital census in Pakistan, in the context of high population growth rate, obviously, and persistent challenges to Pakistan's socioeconomic development. Dr. Zeba, please.
Thank you very much, Saima. And thank you very much to Population Association of Pakistan and Dr. Nasra Shah for arranging. You have 94 participants, and it's a very timely organized webinar with such excellent panelists that I barely have enough to add. But I do, following on from Dr. Luay and Dr. Naeem-uz-Zafar, I would say that this census 2023 started as one that was, I would have said, writing about it maybe earlier this year, that this is going to be a very challenging census. But now what we have is possibly the most challenged census. The results are under severe scrutiny, mostly unacceptable. And I would say that the census is fighting for its survival in terms of credibility of data. So, and this is, yes, I do appreciate the efforts of the PBS that Dr. Naeem-uz-Zafar has talked about. But I think anticipating the realities of Pakistan, knowing the realities of Pakistan, and particularly having gone through the 2017 census and its challenges, I wish we had found time to learn about those challenges, to analyze the data, which actually did not become available till about 2 years ago, and still not as readily available as Dr. Naeem-uz-Zafar is saying, because we ourselves face that challenge right here at the Population Council when we want to analyze data. So I think that a decision to have a 2022 census, basically, which actually fell into 2023, was based on the fact that nobody accepted the 2017 census. I would say not nobody, because I think from the demographic, economic, planning point of view, maybe the 2017 census in retrospect had less credibility challenges than this one is going to have. But I think ultimately when we made a decision, and there was a committee and Dr. Arif headed it with a lot of us who are now on this call, everyone did, and Dr. Arif, who I respect so much, really cautioned, the committee cautioned that this was too soon to have another census in 5 years. Of course, there were political reasons, and the PBS was, asked, to go ahead with the planning. So I think the two challenges that the census faced, and I'm not going to take the name of PBS because I'll just call it the census. The census faced two challenges. One is to produce real quality in a very short period of time, to ensure really good quality data that had who was being covered fully, everyone was being covered fully, that the people who were asking the questions were asking them properly, and the respondents who were answering the questions understood those questions understood the value of the exercise and responded wholeheartedly and cooperated. So that was one challenge, one set of challenges, quality of data. And then the second challenge was really the public trust that Dr. Luay talked about. And to me, the public trust was already eroded by the 2017 census. So in a way, we were set up for, really ensuring going out of our way in terms of the communications. And sadly, I think because of the short time, that communication didn't happen. Despite a strong recommendation that, have a lot of talk shows, have ads. After all, we built public trust about COVID, the necessity to have, inoculations, to be, vaccinated, for the polio campaign. So why not for the census? I think there should have been much more money spent on that. Then in terms of quality, I think also we were rushed for at least in 2 or 3 areas without taking up too much time that really came to matter. One, I think, was the training of enumerators. Anyone who answered, and all of us more or less, a lot of people got excluded, but the people who did have somebody knock at their door said that there was a lot of variation in the quality of the interviews. Some were pretty okay and some were very bad. So I think it was to ensure that there was full, and this is in Islamabad, that there would be good quality. In terms of coverage, I think there was such an advantage of the census that there were geospatial maps. And I think the only step missed, which was, I think, really important, was a step in between, that we should have completely shared the outcome of housing structures with the provinces, maybe even with the public, certainly with local government, to see that we had actually covered everyone, that all the structures in the particular area that everyone knew about. And I think that would have been really a very big positive in terms of raising the public trust, that yes, every structure in my area has been covered since we had it on the GPS. So sadly, I don't think that was done. I think in terms of respondents, I would say, yes, it was Ramzan, the political upheavals, etc. We can make excuse about that. But I think had each one been aware of how important it was to be counted, then I think that we would have a better count. Now, let me come to the second part of my comments, which is really that the whole idea about why the results are challenged. Yes, Dr. Naeem talked about and Dr. Luay too, that yes, the census has just become too politicized. So should we then abandon it? Because I mean, this is a huge amount of money, 32 billion. Last time we complained that we spent something like 12 billion. I think I recall, or maybe it was 18, 19, some of it went to the armed forces. But I do think that we could ill afford another. And so I think that it's real pity that in this country, when a committee so strong as that one headed by Dr. Arif, where we all really passionately argued that perhaps the census should not be done in such haste, still went ahead because 32 billion meant nothing and nobody anticipated what was really staring us in the face, that how were we going to be sure that this hurried census, just because it was digital, the first time ever digital, in fact, might have caused more problems because you spent so much time in the logistics, getting the handhelds, ordering them. We waited and maybe we neglected the traditional parts of how we ensure quality of a census. So, but depoliticizing the census is going to be a tough one. So I really don't know, but I think that when we talk about automatically accept the results of the census, as you were doing just now, Dr. Naeem, saying that this is the count, everyone in this, I think that we have to be really, really cautious. I think as demographers here, and this is my plea to PAP, that PAP put up a statement about this census, that whether it's the fault that we didn't do a good job in terms of quality, or whether we blame the politicians or we blame the provinces for not producing good, well-trained interviews, but the results are not believable. The reason why I say that is this is our responsibility. How can we accept a an intercensal growth rate of close to 3% swallow it. We cannot. The last intercensal growth rate, in my opinion, was highly exaggerated, 2.4. The PBS itself has conducted a Pakistan demographic survey, one that I would really strongly recommend that they do every year. They haven't done it since 2020, and get district level growth rates, because that's the biggest service they can do for Pakistan, of under 2%, just in 2020, the intercensal period, the mid-censal period of 2017. And we heard, we are contradicting ourselves by saying now we've, gone up to 3%. The most ridiculous thing happened last week when the National Economic Council, the NEC, quoted a figure of 3.6%. They were obviously talking about total fertility rates. Where is the demographer's responsibility to point out that what it means? I mean, we are going from 3.6 to 2.9 to 2. What is the actual? And I think that PAP, I would say there should be a second series of seminars really stating our position, or even maybe right after this one. We cannot accept, even if you look at the DHS, we've done some exercise with calculating the rate of natural increase by using fertility from the DHS and mortality from the both surveys done by, and I'm sure Aisha is going to talk about it, from the NIPS. And we do not get a growth rate in any province of over 2.1. So clearly these results are absurd. They should not be accepted. We should not endorse that they're accepted. And if once this voice is raised, then we have half a chance to actually do some internal checks and salvage this census. Otherwise, frankly speaking, we are feeding that whole absurdity of accepting such results. It's not just about a reduction in per capita income. How can you plan the shrinking resources we have on a growth rate of 2.9, which is not acceptable, actually. If there is a post-enumeration survey, which is likely, then I would really strongly say that the experts should be listened to. Provinces should really be, everyone who is interested in the census should be brought to the table about what method we are going to do. I would just do a count, because that's all we need from the census. Everything else, as you said, Dr. Naeem-uz-Zafar, we get from labor force surveys, income expenditure, from PSLMS about characteristics. I think the really only thing that we wanted from this survey, from the census, we haven't got, is a good count, good age structure, preferably migration rates. I think from what I've seen of the migration rates, I think were hardly shared, but they're on the low side. So unless we think there's been huge in migration, international migration, people have rushed into the country of ours, which is highly unlikely. Even the politicians said no, even Balochistan government people I heard said no. So then how did we get this additional number of 10, 15 million population? And unless there's been huge migration from Punjab to Balochistan, how can we accept a figure of 9% annual growth rate in Balochistan? So I would say that if the beginning of the depoliticization would be demographers, population scientists standing up and saying, look, we don't accept these results. They're absurd. Whatever the motivation was, whatever the capacity breakdown was, at least then let's go wholeheartedly into the post-enumeration survey, or just drop the survey if that is the case, and just do the Pakistan demographic survey for measuring the growth rate, or use the 1998 census to if we absolutely need numbers to, because at least that's not controversial. So I'll end here, but I think the biggest losers are the people of Pakistan, because on the one hand, many of us have been really the CCI decisions to allocate rupees 10 billion annually. It's a non-lapsable fund endorsed by CCI to get additional family planning services for the 5 million or so unwanted pregnancies that happen every year. We can't get that 10 billion from the government, but we've happily spent 32 to increase our population by 10, 15 billion. We are unconcerned as a nation about the growing disbalance between the resources and our ability to cope with such a large population, which is already so high. Now we are happily accepting that it'll grow at an even faster growth rate, which will make us a kind of laughing stock and an outlier even greater outlier of the region. So I say I would really urge Dr. Nasra Shah and her leadership in the PAP to take a position on what we do next. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zeba. Dr. Arif, there have been a lot of stirrings and controversies, particularly around potential undercounting in the metropolitan city of Karachi. We would like you to please share your thoughts on where we stand with regards to the results of the census, implications of data deficiencies for estimating future population growth in the country and its subdivisions. Over to you, Dr. Arif.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, let me also share to congratulate PAP and its leadership, Dr. Nasra Shah, Dr. Zahir Gul, and whole executive council of the PAP for organizing this, I think, excellent seminar or webinar with almost 100 participants now. I think I have a brief आवाज आ रही है अगर yeah, I have brief presentation and my presentation puts quite well what Dr. Zeba Sattar has said at the end, that if there is no huge or the large population mobility from other provinces to Balochistan, how can we accept this high population growth in Balochistan or other provinces of the country? What I have tried to analyze in my presentation is to see the inter-province mobility based on the PDHS data. Why I selected this thing? The issue is that the population growth, what we have heard from Dr. Naeem-uz-Zafar, is 3%. And at the national level, there is no role of internal migration. And we are not immigrant country. It means the people are not moving from overseas to Pakistan. So the whole natural population growth is coming through the natural increase, the difference between births and deaths. But the debate in print and electronic media is primarily on the population change or population growth across the provinces. And the argument, I think, if not obvious, but I think the on the background argument is that some provinces are getting people are receiving migrants from other provinces. So the population growth is higher, say in Sindh and Balochistan than in Punjab or KB. So that is the migration. Abhi zara piche rehne dein. Yeah. So that's the reason I have selected this very, you can say, narrowly to see the extent of inter-province mobility to really say something that are we expecting large mobility during the 2023 census between the provinces. I think this slide is just beginning that the two major components of population are the natural increase and net migration. And let me say in the beginning, what I have concluded from this analysis is that the role of internal migration in provincial population growth rate is not very high because of the two things. First thing is that the census period is quite short. I will show later that in just 6 years, we cannot expect a lot of mobility from one province to the other province. And the other thing is that historical trends also does not support the large mobility of population across the provinces. Next, please. Next, please. Just going through quickly, that if you see this first column, 20718 PDHS shows the incidence of internal migration. It is a lifetime in migration. Place of birth and current residence, that is defined as migrant. And the mobility should be across the district. So within the district, mobility is not part of the migration statistics. The same is the case for the census as well. I think in the PSLM, you can see the incidence is almost half what we have experienced from the PTHS. It is a big challenge for NIPS and FBPS to, despite having the similar module, that why there's a huge difference in incidence of in-migration between PDHS and the PSLM. At the national level, it is 11%. It means that every 10th person in Pakistan has moved from one district to the other, or one province to the other, during the lifetime according to the PDHS. And this incidence is quite high in Punjab, followed by Sindh, KP, and Balochistan. You see in the Balochistan is at the lowest end, 6.1% of population are shown as migrant according to the PDS. In PSLM, which sample was quite large, almost 200,000 people, it is only 3.5% in Balochistan. Next, please. I think this, I hope I will complete it soon. This slide shows that the migrant population we have divided into two parts. Mobility within the province and mobility between the province, inter-province mobility. And my focus is on inter-province mobility. Here you can see that over time, particularly after 1973, this inter-province mobility has declined. Almost 1/4 of migrants are moving from one province to the other. Remaining 3/4 of the migrant population is moving within the province. Next, please. Just very quickly, I use this PSLM data at the district level, which is available, I think, and to see the situation across the high migration district, high internal migration districts. And here you can see there's only 3 districts of Pakistan which are attracting people from other provinces, but in rest of the districts, people are moving within the province. And these 3 districts are Rawalpindi, Karachi, and Quetta. Next, please. And I think all these 3 districts have some reasons. Rawalpindi has a reason of being close to the capital city of Islamabad and also headquarters of the armed forces. And in these 2, I think, attract people from all over the Pakistan. Karachi being the port city, attract people from other provinces as well. And we have also seen the Quetta. In all other, I think, districts, including Lahore and Peshawar, you will see the more than 90% of people, they are coming from the surrounding districts or from within the districts. Next, please. I think this is the main thing which I would like to share with you, and you may agree or disagree with me, that this first column is what I have seen in the earlier slides. Second column is adjusted for immigrants. There's only a small proportion of people who were born outside the Pakistan, I think mainly who moved here in 50s or 60s and still alive. So this is the real figure of internal migration lifetime is the second column, not 10.7, 10.3, and Punjab is high, followed by Sindh, KP, Balochistan, and Islamabad, you can see almost 50% of population is the migrant population. What is the share of inter-province in migrants? I think this column is quite interesting to see. In Punjab, only 11% of migrants moved from other provinces. In Sindh, 43% moved from other provinces. KP, it is 58%. Mainly, I think this is for the FATA. FATA was not merged when this census was carried out. And in Balochistan, it is 51%. Islamabad, everybody is a migrant. Now, when we adjust this inter-province percentage with the incidence of migration, the next column tells you what is the inter-province incidence in all these provinces. In Punjab, it is only 1.4. What is this 1.4? It means that only 1.4% of Punjab population is moved from other provinces to Punjab. In Sindh, it is 3.2%. In KP, it is 3.8%, again, because of FATA. And Balochistan, it is 3%. And in Islamabad, it is 46%. Now, in the next thing, what I did, that it is lifetime migration. That we cannot have, I think, much, you can say, space to do some analysis, that the people who moved less than 10 years time and people who moved more than 10 years time. And this period is shown as 2006 to 16. And you can see this, that more than half moved 10 years ago in Punjab, and almost 2/4 moved in Sindh before 10 years of the PDHS survey. It means before 2005. And KP, the figure is there, and this one is also there. Now, if we adjust this and to see the recent mobility means that the people who moved during last 10 years to these provinces from other provinces, then the migrant population in Punjab is only 0.6%, less than 1%. In Sindh, it is 1%. KP, it is 2%. Balochistan is also close to 2%. And Islamabad, it is 24 or 25%. So what is the message here? Message here is that the inter-province mobility of people moving from one province to other province is not likely to have a big impact on the population growth of provinces. So the real thing for population growth is natural increase. And natural increase, we know this crude death rate is almost similar in all provinces. It is basically the birth rate or fertility. And fertility, we know, as Dr. Zeba is saying, has declined from 3.6%. Then with this lower mobility between the provinces and the current demographic situation, it is very, very difficult to say the high population growth, 3% or even more than 3%, what we have witnessed in Sindh and also in Balochistan. And KP, basically it has come for the merger of FATA with this one. So this inter-province mobility does not support high population growth in the provinces. But I think the population census will tell us more about the internal migration. But I can argue that if the incidence of internal migration is higher in the population census, it will be very difficult to accept the high mobility just in 6 years' time. The 2017 and 2023 is only 6 years period of time. Next, please. I think for way forward, I have many things to say, but I would like to suggest these 3 or 4 things. The first thing is really, it's very difficult for me to absorb these 5 extensions in the census enumeration. What is implications in terms of the data? Every time we have some addition in the census data, I try to see this extension in other parts of the world, but really I could not get any solid information to give some justification that can we extend census enumeration dates for 5 times. I think it's and then how the data would be adjusted to see that why these extensions was done. So this is in my opinion, for way forward, this justification is quite important. Second thing is for the future. One thing could be just close the census practice, but my suggestion is that the best way to depoliticize the census is to plan now for the 2031 population census, to put back on the 51, 61, 72, and 81 series. We have really disturbed our whole census practices by not holding the census between 1981 and now quite regularly. I think this will avoid the delay, and also we will really be out of this political pressure that when the census will be held, and then PBS will have the time for managing as well. Third thing I would say that the next census should also be unconventional methodology. Don't do a lot of new things. Capacity of the PBS is, when we compare the other countries of the world, particularly the regionally, is really not comparable. So conventional method for the next census, then we can see what is going on in the rest of the world. And more importantly, with my experience of last 10 or 15 years working with the PBSs, please strengthen the population census team. We used to have a very strong team, but over time, this team has been weakened in the PBS. I think with these 3 things in this migration data, if we move forward, maybe we could be in a better situation. Thank you very much. If I have taken long time, I would apologize.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arif, for highlighting such important points when we think about the census and the discrepancies in the data and its analysis. So I would like to now call upon Dr. Nasra. Please, Dr. Nasra, please share with us your thoughts on the digital census and what might be some methodological challenges we might need to consider. Over to you, Dr. Nasra.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saima. And thanks to all the speakers. So what I want to do is I want to just share with you some ideas based on my experience with this last census. A few issues. Can I have, yeah, okay. First of all, let me start with a positive note. Okay, now if we are going to, for the next census, if we are going to go the digital way, then probably,
Can I please request participants to mute their microphones? Dr. Saima, I think your microphone is unmuted.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the experience with using tablets and all that, probably if we are going to repeat this exercise, should be a good one to learn from. Also, the experience with self-enumeration. I think potentially, particularly for a certain subset of the population, this would be perhaps a good way to go about it. But then with the level of literacy in the country, I don't know how far we can go with this. Also, in terms of, well, my own feeling was, and I see that Zeba would not agree with this one, that I felt that there was perhaps a reasonably high knowledge among the public about the census. Okay, now I want to raise three issues. All right. The first issue that I want to raise is regarding the de jure nature of the census and the implicit definition and the confusion about the usual resident. And I'm drawing on, I've talked to, this is mainly observational and sharing with friends and family what their experiences were. So obviously, I'm not basing this on a representative sample or anything, but I found that there was confusion about what a usual resident meant. For example, if a domestic worker had been living in an urban area for 10 years, but his wife and children were in the village. Now, in the case of my own cook, his wife had reported him as a usual resident of the village where he comes from, although he's lived with us for about 15 years, and he's a usual resident of Lahore. Then, since I knew that he had been counted there, so then when the census people came, then I told him that he should not be listed again over here. But I mean, it's rare that people would take this into consideration and would try to make sure that this concept of usual resident was understood. Okay, so what could happen as a result of this misperception and confusion is that a person could be counted twice, or perhaps a person could be missed altogether. So this, I felt, was one of the fundamental problems. Okay, so that's the first issue. The second issue that I want to raise is with regard to, can I have the next slide, please? So the second issue is that some enumerators, when they came to the house and they found that that none of the family members was home who could help them fill this digitally, so they left a form. Okay, and if you go to the next slide, yeah, so of what I'm calling a simpler form that was developed by the enumerator and was left with the household help to be filled and returned. Can I go back one slide? Okay, so the enumerator then picked up this form, and obviously they must have then filled it by themselves at home. Now, so these are the items that were there on this form. So not everything that was on the census form itself was actually there on this, what I'm calling the simplified form by the enumerator. So can we go forward to the next slide and then, yeah. Okay, so some of the very important items that were missed on this simpler form were information relating to the household structure, rooms, etc., religion, mother tongue, and nationality. Now, I understand that the nationality item is the one that is likely to be used to tell us how many residents in Pakistan are living in an irregular situation. So this was not there on the simpler form. Okay, now I wonder how the above questions would have been filled, if at all. And I'm also wondering how widespread this practice was. To what extent there were these simpler forms by the enumerators. So that's one thing to consider. Finally, can you go to the next one, please? Yeah. So the third issue that I want to raise is, well, since Dr. Arif and I are both interested in migration, so the migration questions are of a special interest to me. Okay, so the inter-district is covered, but as from what I can understand, the intra-district is not covered. And so when we are considering the next census, then we should be thinking about this. As far as the international migration is concerned, this census asked the same question that had been asked in 2017, but I cannot understand what the reference period is in terms of, fine, it asks to ask whether there's been anyone who's been away for more than 6 months. But then it doesn't give a reference period for how long. And when I compare the lifetime stock of migrants, there are discrepancies between what we find in the census and what is available from other sources. So I wonder how to deal with these discrepancies. So finally, let me just conclude by just identifying a few points. A lot has been said already. So we heard from Dr. Naeem that there are plans for a post-enumeration survey, but then Dr. Zeba was suggesting that instead of a post-enumeration survey, perhaps a better thing to do is to do a demographic survey. I mean, my take on that would be, my suggestion on that would be that whatever we're going to do, let's take time to consider what our best options are and take the one that scientifically would give us the best results. One of the questions that I have is, will the self-enumeration data be compared with the rest? And that, because that would be an interesting exercise. And finally, when are the results likely to be published, which I think is a question that everyone would be interested in. But I mean, but how acceptable are the results is perhaps the more important question. So thank you. I'll end with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nasra. Now I would like to invite Dr. Aisha Sheraz to share her thoughts on some of the on-ground realities and challenges that may have affected the first ever digital census of Pakistan. Dr. Aisha, please.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. I am Dr. Aisha Shiraz from NEPS, and today I have the honor to deliberate upon the next, please. the implication of data deficiencies for estimating future population growth in the country and its subdivisions. Next, please. Next, please. Data deficiencies can have significant implications for estimating future population growth in Pakistan and its without accurate, complete data. It will be challenging and to develop robust population estimates, which can impact policy making, resource allocation, and infrastructure development. Third, the human population can no longer uncontrolled way. If we do not take charge of our population size, then nature will do this for us. Next, please. It is from the Street Children of India. Next. Inaccurate population estimate deficiencies in data collection can lead to inaccurate population estimates, which can lead in incorrect policy making and planning. The government needs accurate population estimates to provide essential services such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure in different areas according to their needs. The inaccurate population estimates resulting from deficiencies in data collection have significant implications for policymakers and planners. The government must have accurate population estimates to effectively as per the requirements. Adversely affect, this also affect the social policy formulation. In fact, social policy formulation can cover a wide range of areas, including poverty reduction, education and healthcare, employment, and social welfare. Different regions and subdivisions within a country and often have distinct social and economic characteristics influenced by the factors such as geography, culture, and historical context. Failing to capture these can lead to an incomplete understanding of local social and economic demographics. This can also lead to difficulty in tracking the progress. Without that, leading to one-size-fits-all approach to social policy, which may not effectively address the diverse needs and nuisance of different regions. Furthermore, accurate data is crucial for monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of these policies. The lack of data-driven feedback can hinder the progress of social policies and issues in improve the well-being of communities. And these difficulties in tracking arises when future population growth is misjudged, resulting in inefficient measurement of economic and social indicators and lead to irregular data representativeness. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. NIPS has large-scale surveys on its flagship, which include back then. Zahir Saab, pichla wala. We have two flagship surveys. These are Pakistan Demographic and Health Survey and Pakistan Maternal Mortality Survey. And we also have other national level surveys, that is national level, more than 100,000 households sample is on drug use and healthcare. And we have also conducted a survey on panel study for 4 years on population and unmet need. Next, please. And we have also faced various data challenges in Pakistan surveys, and which includes limited coverage. One of the challenges faced in Pakistan surveys is in report and accessible areas. This can result in biased representation of the population, leading to incomplete and potentially inaccurate data. Non-response and refusals can also pose challenges in data collection. Some individuals may choose not to participate or may provide incomplete or inaccurate data, leading to gaps in the data and potential bias. There are cultural and societal barriers also. Respondents' willingness to provide certain sensitive information related to reproductive health, family planning, and other personal topics. These barriers can result in underreport and hesitation in providing accurate data, affecting the reliability and completeness of the survey results. Language and communication in Pakistan is also, as Pakistan is a diverse country, this can affect the survey materials and questions that are not properly asked. Data quality assurance, ensuring data is critical challenge in large-scale surveys, and data entry errors, inconsistency, incomplete responses can compromise the reliability and validity of the data collected. And the remedies to address these data challenges are, we have to enhance geographic coverage. Effort should be made to improve research in these areas. This can be achieved by providing adequate resources, training of field staff, utilizing innovative data collection methods such as mobile surveys or satellite integrity to ensure a more representative sample. Address non-response and refusal by implementing strategies to minimize non-response and refusal. This can involve enhancing community engagement, building trust, and emphasizing the importance of accurate data collection to encourage participation, employing skill interviews who can establish rapport and effectively communicate with the respondent, and can also help mitigate these challenges. We should sensitize the data collection staff, also train the staff, and maintain the confidentiality related to cultural and social norms. This can create a safe and non-judgmental environment and respondents to provide accurate information. Adequate linguistic adaptation of the survey material is essential to ensure respondents understand the questions and can provide accurate data. We should also implement data quality control measures. Establishing robust quality control measures crucial to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the survey. This can involve conducting rigorous training, data collection, implementing data validation checks during data entry, and conducting data quality audits to identify and rectify errors. Overall, addressing the data challenges faced requires a multi-pronged approach involving enhanced coverage in the field of health and demographics. Next, please. Next, please. Now I would like to, as a member of as a member of Census, based on my experience in field research, technical surveys, and involvement in the census, I believe that most of the data deficiencies arise from missing individuals, leading to inaccurate population estimates. Next. Improved communication, cultural sensitivity, language adaptation, generating field check tables, spot checking, field monitoring, and rigorous data quality assurance measures. By implementing these measures, these remedies, qualities, and reliability of the data can be improved, leading to more informed decision making, and also cater the skewed demographic representation. At the subdivisional level, the lack of comprehensive data poses significant challenges. Without comprehensive subdivisional data, it becomes difficult to address specific regional needs, resulting in efficient utilization of resources. Low response rate to self-enumeration effort can also affect the deficiencies. Data gaps arise from incomplete participation, and it should be that the lower response rate may be unworthy to be generalized on the total population. Next, please. And I would like to add that I have seen the census preparation, it was really impressive by Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, but some of the commitment of other stakeholder also affected some of the information relating to the data. For example, in the disability, as a member of the census, I have observed that issues in interviews with disabled or special people, the most of the time the interviewers do not comply with the standard protocols to obtain data from the disabled people. It was really difficult to obtain data from such people, and during the spot checks, it was observed that the enumerators and people were not clear about all the questions, and some of the questions were asked in one question instead of asking 6 questions. Next, please. So for understanding, I endorse the lack of comprehensive disability data hinders the development of targeted interventions and programs aims at improving the life of the disabled individuals. So in conclusion, accurate and complete data collection, access and techniques allow for comprehensive and reliable population estimates, making policy making efficient. Data deficiencies lead to inconsistencies in population estimates, which can ultimately result in inefficiency, unnecessary spending, and mismanagement of resources. Hence, actual data is the foundation for equitable resources distribution, crafting social security and welfare safety for the population. Next, please. I end my presentation by saying that Pakistan's population is next, please, is not just a number but a driving force behind their resources allocation policies that prioritize social inclusion, economic growth, and environmental sustainability for a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aisha. And just 1 minute. I think there is some issue.
I think Dr. Saima, it's fine. Dr. Aisha has muted her microphone now. Please go ahead.
Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Aisha. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for questions. Please raise your hands or type your question in the chat. I would request you to please introduce yourself and keep your questions brief in the interest of time. And I just want to highlight that we may go up a little bit to accommodate as many questions as we can. So thank you for your patience. So Dr. Luay, you raise your hand, please ask your question.
Dr. Nosheen, madam, please. You can unmute your mic.
Dr. Nosheen, can you hear me? Nosheen, please unmute yourself. We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hello, am I audible? Right. I just thought if we don't have enough time for questions,
so
we can put them in the chat box and they can be
hands.
later accommodated.
In the meantime, there are some questions which we got in our chat box. One of
Dr. Saima, I'll jump in. I'll jump in with the question.
Is that why do we not use BISP survey data instead of doing the census? So I would request Dr. Naeem to answer this.
Saima, very shortly, instead of asking me, you can ask the demographers.
The panelists to answer questions. Like Adnan Siddiqui from Easy Shafar, he is interested to know why are we still using traditional methods.
Saima, may I interject?
Dr. Saima, can you hear us?
90% confidence.
Dr. Saima, can you hear us?
Reason for not planning or conducting the sample study, which was a part of 1998 census. I think this Dr. Naeem-uz-Zafar talked about that we are going to do the post-enumeration survey. Might be Maqsood, I think you are asking about that. So I would request the panelist.
No, Dr. Saima, I'm not asking about the post-enumeration.
These questions before moving on to the next one.
Dr. Saima, thank you so much. I think we are over time now. So what we are proposing is that we have several questions that folks can see on the slide. I would
we
like
cannot
to
hear you.
request-
You are not audible.
Can folks hear me? Can anyone confirm?
We can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you. Yeah.
Thank you.
We can
Yes.
Dr.
Yes,
Sama,
we
there's
can
something
hear you.
happening at your end with the speakers, I believe. Dr. Naeem-uz-Zafar, please come in. You were speaking, and then I think we can move on.
Yeah, so I'll try to sequentially respond to these questions. I think if demographers can be more relevant, but for the paucity of time, I'm responding to the BISP. So even the wider, bigger, and more comprehensive data set of NADRA, even that cannot be used for substituting census. It can be broadly supplemented, and even that exercise is very strongly challenged by demographers. So it's an incomplete data. It cannot be used. Why we are not using, still using traditional method of counting the population. Now we have to exhaust the population. That's how the census is defined. Once, if this gets approved, if this gets accepted by society, and then if we can possibly move to register, then we can think of this. But so long, we have to do the census and the inter-census period. The population growth has to be determined by the demographic survey. 5% study, it may not be 5%, but we are doing post-enumeration survey. 5% sample. So we did, what could be the reason for not planning conduction of 5% sample study, which was part of 1998 census? I think we are covering this information in PSLM and several other surveys for migration and fertility. So probably, I mean, we are already addressing, and census may not be done for to exhaust the population on these questions. In Balochistan enumerators, I've used the same 2017 form to collect data, and many were missed. How can we consider? No, I mean, that was started, but 4 or 5 times we reprimanded them through the provincial administration. We are against it. This was done, but this should not have been done. So they tried to get their convenience, and some of the enumerators went against the norms, which was detected, reprimanded, communicated, and we tried to control it. To some extent we could, and to some extent we could not. Illegal immigrants have been counted in separate box, so it's not that they are omitted. What did PBS do to nudge people to address the perceived burden for the enumeration? That's a social change that that probably merely from communication or public service media that cannot change the social trait. So people should find themselves committed to deliver their social responsibility for national issues, national concerns. And it's not something, if that has been missing for adolescent formative phase, you don't expect PBS to transform that society so that everyone gets census rights to his or her social responsibility. Can thematic mapping and spatial analysis be possible? Yes, it is possible. All the structures have been geotagged, so spatial, that is one of the desk exercise which we have been doing. We partially did it for some districts of Balochistan and Sindh, and when we expanded the scope of this exercise to other districts where we have spotted the extent of overlisting and over enumeration. Last, can we claim that this is digital census since there is no digitization of household prior data collection? I think this is not correct. In listing, the structures have been digitized. More than 40 million of structures of residential dwellings and economic, partially or fully, they have been digitized. And if you go through the UN definition of digital census, there are 3 elements which are, when merged, define the digital census. And if you go through the methodology, it's widely available, publicized. Those 3 elements are present in edifies the structure which we have made to do this digital census. Thank you.
Can I add something?
Please, sir, please go ahead.
Just to add what Dr. Naeem-uz-Zafar has said about the alternative to population census. I think there's no alternative to population census. In some countries of Europe and very recently Turkey, they have started by combining the comprehensive registration data with the annual survey. ये-
Dr. Abda
Please,
Sharif, can
क्या?
you please
ये
mute
बंद
your
कर दें।
microphone? Dr. Abda? Dr. Arif, just a second. Tahir Saab, can you please mute the microphone for Dr. Abda? Thank you.
Sure.
My point is that there's no alternative to the population census. And it took Turkey almost 20 years to move to the, you can say, combination of survey and also the registration data. So Pakistan in 2031 even should not think about changing any new methodology. For the time being, conventional survey and methodology like the digital census is as well on the conventional methodology. That is the possible way for Pakistan. There's no alternative to the census data. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arif. Ladies and gentlemen, we are making a record of all comments and questions, and we will be following up on that. I would like to request Dr. Nausheen. She had a point that she wanted to make. And before she comes in, Faiz Saab, I know you're waiting to talk about Balochistan. I see you. I'm there. We'll take a question from Dr. Nausheen and the UNFPA representative, Dr. Shabaneh. And then, sir, if the audience has appetite, we'll come to you. Dr. Nausheen, please go ahead, unmute yourself, and the floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I think it's really heartening to see that PAP has taken this initiative to just have a webinar on a very, very pressing and important topic that we have been discussing for decades, and then we are, I think it's the same circle, we are pushing around the beat and coming up with the same issues. I think starting with the first panelist, Dr. Zeba Sattar, she really took a very sort of clear and candid and bold stance and outrightly rejected the census estimates. I think the arguments that she put forward, they are really hard to disagree with. But I think we just need to dive more into this and try to understand or find out the sources or the causes of errors. You know, what errors have been conducted either on the part of the enumerators or the respondents, because we have had these kind of controversies in all the previous censuses. But this is really amazing to see that instead of going forward, we are moving backwards, which is such a, it is really hard to digest. But before taking a stance or making any statement, I think we need to dig more into this and also wait for the post-enumeration survey, which shows us what. And also the Dr. Arif's point that different kinds of extensions and were made, the time period was extended. Was there an attempt to make some kind of adjustments with the results or data? That I would like to know. And also, I think Dr. Nasra's point on the counting of de jure population, because I remember we sat in the technical meetings and this total population count, the very first question was discussed in detail. You know, I think more than 2 or 3 months were spent on that how the usual residents are to be counted and what is the difference between de jure and de facto. So we should first look at the difference, how much difference is between the de jure and de facto population to estimate or judge that the de jure population has been estimated accurately, you know, how close it is or what big difference they show. And I think about the de jure, I would very briefly, now I don't want to take long, but the enumerator who came to my household to get the form filled, I found him very casual about gathering information. Sorry to say that. So I have these very serious questions about the training of enumerators. And I think I would agree with this with Zeba Sattar, that we rushed into conducting another census after 4 or 5 years. And then the first attempt to go to the digital exercise, which needs a lot of pondering and also training and other things. So I think he asked the questions very casually, and some he assumed that Islam was my religion and Urdu was my mother tongue, which is not, Punjabi. So I just said that you are not asking the question properly. So I think we need to really look into these issues and challenges more deeply, and then come up with a certain, very clear statement on the census. And I think should be, and Dr. Arif's in-depth analysis, of course, is useful to prove the point that we have some doubts on the census estimates, but the same we had on the 2017 census. So more thorough discussions and in-depth analysis is needed to find the sources of error and to justify what PBS has been doing for the past decades. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Luay, Shabaneh, sir, your hand is up. Do you want to join, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to make 2 points. The first one, on the register-based census, Pakistan is not eligible to that. In order to make a register-based census, you need to have good registry. And this does not apply to Pakistan. The way is too long. So I don't see that Pakistan has any other choice except the traditional way of the census, whether you use the technology and you call it digital, or use it paper-based, is the same, doesn't make no difference. But this full-fledged census is still the only option, I am afraid, that's available now. I would like to warn against something, because I also hear too many people say accept the census or not accept the census. The census, by definition, does not require to be accepted by anybody. It is to discuss the methodology and agree on the methodology. That's it. But the outcome should not be subject to acceptance, because if you open this door, then you will assassinate the census at the long run, because always there is somebody who will not like the results. Definitely, all the time, some party or some province will not like the results, and they will say we don't accept it. It does not need consensus. It needs to be agreed upon the methodology. Once it is agreed upon, the outcome is something. The main issue, in my opinion, is that the census, maybe I am not aware how it was implemented, and I hear Dr. Naeem, and I hear the observation from the colleagues. Definitely, all of them have more access to information than I do. But when I look at the results, I feel I have the same concerns. It does not make does not go with the expectations. So unless there is justification provided by other sources or by a situation on the ground, the quality should be looked at. The post-enumeration in the traditional way will help us only to see the undercount or the overlap. But if you want to look at the quality of the data, there are more advanced methods that could be used, including when it comes to the estimations, the hybrid methodology of using too many sophisticated images, satellite images, to compare and to come up with estimates on the actual number of people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Luay. Shabaneh. We have several comments And questions, please note that we have made a note of these. We will be circulating these with some comments based on what we have heard back. I know we are 20 minutes over time, but our colleague from Balochistan, Faiz Baresh Saab, has been requesting to share something. Faiz Saab, you have about 30 seconds to share your comments, and then we will head towards the close and follow up with the recording. Faiz Saab, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Zahir Gul, for keeping in Balochistan always on priority and taking in loop someone always for such kind of important discussion in loop. I'm very much thankful to the Dr. Zeba Sattar, Dr. Nasira Shah, and Naeem-uz-Zafar Saab. He's my colleague as well. Well, I'll talk in the context of Balochistan. Here I will explain some fact findings. In reality, that the dynamics of Balochistan is quite different from Punjab, KB, and Sindh. Here we have unaware masses, unaware communities, and population is the biggest issue, sudden growth rate of population. If I'll talk about the census, I personally noticed that the numerators, they themselves were not clear on the form and on census protocol. And if we referencing the form of 2017, when it conducted in Balochistan, so many political parties and many masses boycott that. Zahir Gul Sahib, it must be in your notice, because you are also son of the soil, that half of Balochistan boycott the census and they did not give the data. So how, even this time, the numerators were not clear, the masses were not familiar with the census, they were not aware, they were not sensitized, and they have not given a complete data. Even I have noticed personally in my vicinity at Koita level, which is the capital of the province, that the numerators were almost the government school teachers of low level, and they were filling most of the question on behalf of the household. And even they were not knowing the definition of household, that in which level they have to collect the data. So before starting census, the community elder distributed forms to the households that fill it. So, you know, the literacy rate here in Balochistan is very low, and they were not knowing how to fill it. So in the end, when the numerators and the team of census came to the areas, it was very difficult for them to accommodate all the vicinity. So this was just the formality. And I don't believe that Naeem-uz-Zafar Saab can ensure the quality data of Balochistan. And I will request Population Association to come to Balochistan. It's our will, and we will invite you cordially to have a type of symposium, like we have issue with the political will, with the religious issues, cultural barriers, and even our people from the parliament, they need to be sensitized on population, which is the biggest issue. Like referencing two main sources of data, which is PDHS and NNS. So I will ask the question, Naeem-uz-Zafar Saab, if they compare the results of current census conducted in 2023 and those two surveys. So if they do the analysis, they will find quite difference in the data. So I will request Population Association Pakistan to come to Balochistan to take in loop Health and Population Department and to talk, because a huge and seasonal migration is the biggest issue. They have not been interviewed and they have not been taking the part of the census, because it's the big issue, the seasonal migrations. Zahir Gul Sahib, you know that in Balochistan. So kindly, it's my request, and thank you very much again for giving priority to Balochistan. I would love and request Population Association and every forum related to population to take in loop Balochistan and to involve them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Faiz Saab. As this is a webinar series, we will be following up this series with one webinar for each province. So thank you, and we'll take you up on that offer for Balochistan. We are now 24 minutes over time. It's amazing what the interest is, and we still have over 60 participants. So that shows there's a lot of appetite for this kind of conversations. But unfortunately, we have to move to a close. Dr. Nasra Shah, may I please request you to share some closing thoughts, and then we can close the webinar for today, and then watch out for the next in this series of webinars. Thank you very much. And Dr. Nasra, over to you, madam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zahir. I would like to thank each and every one of the speakers this afternoon, this morning. And I guess we are left with more questions than answers at the end of all this. However, we need to go on. We need to ask these tough questions. We need to come to conclusions that are, I'll again go back to that, are scientifically accurate, so that we can then base our planning and policy making on reliable, accurate grounds. I mean, that would be the, and should be the goal. So I would like to just thank Dr. Shabaneh, Dr. Naeem-uz-Zafar, Dr. Zeba-Sattar, Dr. Arif, and Dr. Aisha for their thoughts, and all of this, and almost 100 people who were with us at one point. And finally, I want to recognize 3 people who are joining us from, like Dr. Atiya Anayatullah, who was with us almost throughout this. Dr. Farid Yusuf, probably all the way from Australia. And my colleague, Francois de Bellier from France. So we've had people from overseas. So as you were saying, Dr. Zahir, this is a very important topic. And we look forward at PAP to organizing such webinars for each, within each province, where, of course, there are local, there are the broader national issues, and then there are local issues. Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who asked questions. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to all the participants. And please watch out this space. We will come up with the announcement for the next webinar in this series, and we are going to do it at the provincial level. Probably next one would be in Sindh. We are planning to do that, but we'll announce it once it's finalized. And I'm really grateful to all the panelists and all the participants for joining us and making this webinar really successful. And it was timely to discuss these issues. And once again, I'm really grateful for all of you. Thank you so much, and Khuda Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.
Okay, maybe the organizer can just finish it.
Yes, please exit. I'm just waiting for folks to exit. Dr. Nasr, thank you so much.
Right. So you have lots.
Tahir Saab, can you please close the webinar now? Thank you.
Okay.